Hello, everyone. Very good to have you with us today. So while we're waiting, I'll just very briefly introduce myself and then I'll hand it over to Sunil for an introduction. So I'm Vera and I'm here because I work in the product marketing team and I speak to a lot of customers to find out about their problems, what sort of things they're hoping to achieve with the product and what sort of challenges they're trying to solve. And then Sunil is with me here today.
Yep, my name is Sunil. I'm one of our solutions engineers here at Cloud Talk. So I come from the commercial side of things. So largely I work with the North American market, especially around scoping out and building these voice agents. So if you ever come to us interested in these products, most likely I'll be one of the faces that you meet as we figure out, is this right for you? And if it is, how is our plan going to look like as we roll these out for your business?
Awesome. So just jumping into the agenda, first of all, we're going to talk about what seasonality means for different industries and why it's so important to think about seasonality. And then Sunil will take over and he's actually going to give us a demo of a couple of voice agents and he's going to walk us through how different industries may be using these voice agents. Now, obviously this session, we want to keep them short. So we picked just a couple of industries, but if you are interested in a specific use case, specific industry, I will have some surveys in the interim while we're talking so you can leave your suggestions and what you would like to hear next. And at the end, we'll leave some time for Q&A as well. Let's jump right into it. When you think about seasonality, different types of industries hit different business seasons. Black Friday and all those, that holiday rush, and then the returns, those are like really big for e-commerce. But then you've got education with all the enrollment periods, or you've got tourism as well during summer or the holidays towards the end of the year and so on. So different industries will have their seasonal peaks. And seasonal surges aren't really the exception. They're predictable. But the problem is not the high volume of calls, is that most of the time the capacity stays flat. And the volume will outpace the bandwidth, and that will basically result in missed calls, longer wait times, burnout for your team, and so on. And we'll end up with one-fourth of inbound calls going unanswered, even though your call volumes spike. But when we think really about the cost of missed calls, it's not only money. We always want to think about money, but we actually found three sort of buckets to explain the cost of missed calls. One is obviously the revenue, which is the lost opportunities from calls that you don't pick up. But then another thing are all those customers that are going to switch, they're going to churn, or they're going to decide not to go with you, but with your competitor because you did not answer your call. And in fact, we looked into some statistics. And 85% of consumers will switch after one bad service experience, and 76% will call a competitor if their first choice, which will probably be you, they does not answer. And then after that, there's the talent side of things, which is the people and the people that feel overwhelmed, stressed out, overworked because they need to suddenly do more with that same capacity. And this causes a lot of talent a lot of talent turnover in the first couple of months. And contact centers actually see 30 to 45% annual turnover. But I'm speaking to a lot of clients, as I said, and sadly, I couldn't screenshot what I'm talking to them about. But what I could screenshot were all the questions that I find on sites such as Reddit, on forums such as Reddit. I love Reddit. It's the place I go to for most of my life questions and business questions. And there are a bunch of threads asking about how do you actually deal with after-hour support? What do you do during weekends? What do you do during peak times or peak season period? And the answers are, I don't think you're going to be surprised by the answers, but the answers are add more people, temporary support, send people to a chatbot, or just add a voicemail, tell them we're not available at this time. And if they call you after hours, it's their fault. It's not your fault as a business. And really, this is just the old way of doing things. And a lot of companies will try these first. These are the fixes that everybody reaches for because they're so familiar. They've been done forever. However, when you think about it, they're really expensive because it comes up to three things: adding people or adding friction or adding complexity. And all of these come with their cons. First of all, when you hire temporary workers, you need to train them. And you need to also make sure that they are delivering the same quality that you expect them to deliver as the rest of the team that's there all the time. And that's hard. That's really hard, especially if you're getting like peaks a lot of times throughout the year. The second thing you're doing is you might be adding friction, saying, okay, we're going to just push them to voicemail, put them in a backlog for callbacks and so on, but you're not solving the problem. You're just adding them to a backlog for your human team to again reach out to them later on, tomorrow, next week, and so on. Or you're adding complexity, and we see a lot of companies doing it. One more branch in the IVR tree. Let's push them to a chatbot. Let's ring to all agents. And all of this is causing chaos. And you might think that you are giving your giving your team back control, but that's just an illusion because the real issue here is not that you're missing, like it's not staffing, it's not that you don't have enough people. It's the scalability of solving these problems. And that's exactly where AI can help because a lot of these things that you used to solve with some like outdated solutions can now be solved with AI. And obviously, you're here to learn about AI voice agents. So we're going to be talking about the new way to handle these issues, which is an elastic, intelligent, and always on. And when you think about AI voice agents, we really want you to think about two buckets in really simple terms. First, you have the AI receptionist. That's the front door to your business. It's the easiest use case you can imagine. It answers the FAQs, is there to answer 24/7. It can give updates, whatever the customer asks for. You will see exactly how Sunil will explain what AI receptionist can do. And then you have specialized agents, including, in this case, we're going to be talking about outbound pre-qualification, which works really well when it comes to peak demand. And a lot of our customers are using it, which is basically someone fills in a form and then the AI voice agent calls them back immediately. So there's no delay and they can act at the moment of intent. And also AI voice agents, if you've ever been to previous webinars or you've read some of the product updates, you know that they come with smart handoffs to your team. So it's not like you're cutting them off and you're giving all the work to the AI voice agent, but they triage and figure out what needs to happen next. Okay, with all that said, now it's demo time. It's the time for the fun stuff. Sunil, take it over.
Sounds good. So we'll start by doing a quick exploratory call with one of these voice agents, starting with the AI receptionist. So the idea here is you have this virtual assistant just manning the phones. Customers are going to call in. Maybe you don't have the capacity to handle them, so it's going to take over. So let's run through a very straightforward call, maybe an order status, maybe a stocking question.
All right, so you all can see my screen correctly, right?
Hello, this is CT AI Assistant for Cloud Talk. How can I help today?
Hey, I want to check in on one of my orders.
Of course. Could you please provide your order number so I can look it up for you?
Yep, this would be order 853909.
Sure, let me check that for you. I can see that you placed your order last week on the 6th of November. Our standard delivery is within 5 working days, and your order has already been packed and handed over to the shipping company. The last update is that it should be delivered tomorrow morning. Do you have any further questions?
Yep, I was wondering if I can modify my order to add some pink strawberry bamboo socks into there.
I'm not able to change any details or add items to existing orders myself. Our customer support team can help you with that during office hours. Would you like me to arrange for someone to contact you about modifying your order?
I'll send an email inquiry to there, but that's great, thank you.
Thank you for calling. If you need anything else, our team is available Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. Goodbye.
Bye. So while we're on the screen, we can actually pivot to another cool part about the AI receptionist. So rather than our basic call flow designer goes one simple step. We call into the number, it goes to the voice agent. But something you can do here is add in a condition splitter in case you want this to be more generalist reception. Maybe it should have one line for billing, one line for order inquiries, and one line for upsells. So we can add a splitter, and in here we can have it route to maybe a more specialized voice agent or to a human for more important conversations. So maybe we want to have all sales calls get vetted by the AI receptionist and go into our sales team. And here we can add a condition where it'll look into the voice agent response. We can select a property. So in this case, we have a default one here, favorite pet. And if it contains a certain value, it goes there. And so as we come into the AI setup, this is going to become drastically more simpler in the near future, but we'll have all these different options in the data capture output. This is where you can define what bits of information should pick up in the call. And so as it's doing these conversations, it can see, okay, this is a billing inquiry. Once the call is done, we're going to forward it to the billing team. And as the call is getting transferred, me on the billing side, I'll be able to see some context from the information based off whatever you just find here. So if you have something like the call summary, the reason for the call, maybe a specific product you want to speak about, all that can be captured and displayed so that the receiving agent doesn't have to restart the whole conversation. So they can pick up right from where the voice agent left off and reduce call handling times accordingly.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sunil. I'll go back to sharing just so you can walk through some of the case studies. By the way, for everyone here, we have the third webinar in this series is going to be roadmap webinar, and hopefully on that webinar you're going to be able to see the very simple setup that we're planning and going to roll out very soon. Okay. So just to add a couple of things here based on what Sunil said, I'll just very quickly summarize. What you saw happening for e-commerce and where's my order can happen for any sort of business. For example, imagine if you're you work in hospitality, or like you have a restaurant, or you have any sort of business with a physical location. People are going to call you and they're going to ask for your business hours, or if you work during the holidays. And obviously the AI receptionist can handle that. Or you can also, we have a customer that is uploading things like returns, or like how long do they have before they can cancel, or what's the refund policy. You can upload your knowledge base. And Sunil is going to again walk through how different customers are using this to answer these questions. Or like with the situation that Sunil mentioned, that Sunil showed you, if they want to cancel or if they want to modify something, you can choose, okay, I don't want this to go through an AI agent. I want this to go through a human, so they can transfer to a human. So really the opportunities here are endless. Sunil, let's go through some of the case studies that we want to share.
Sounds good. Let's do it. So a really common one I have, especially as it pertains to seasonality, is as you see on the screen here, product lookups, order support, and general support. So a few of my customers, especially, they'll manage all of their orders out of softwares like Shopify and Magento. And it's one thing for a human to manually type up the order number, find it in Shopify, and relay back to the caller what's going on with the order. It's a whole other thing for the AI to just pass that through an API, instantaneously get information about the order, and pretty much handle the whole conversation on its own. From what we see, a lot of these questions tend to be along the lines of frequently asked questions, more rote inquiries with slight levels of personalization. So they might not have a super detailed inquiry. If they do, that can be a stronger voice agent or can be passed on to a human, but it could just be something as simple as Christmas is right around the block. It's December 15th. I'm getting worried. Where's my order? At which point the AI, the voice agent, can check the API against Shopify or your favorite e-commerce platform, get a sense for what the status is. So maybe it's in the warehouse, maybe it's en route. Heck, maybe our delivery partners already told us it's at the door. They just need to check. So that's a really common inquiry. And another one is being able to process information like returns or modifying orders. So sometimes a case where someone will place an order online, they'll go through the website, but they'll realize last second, wait, I forgot to do this. Now my options are either I can email in, ask to add on an additional order of socks to that order, save some money on shipping costs, or we place a second order, which is generally a poor customer experience. A third option is being able to modify it over the phone, which was much more common in the 50s, 60s, but as e-commerce grew, as order demand significantly grew, we saw this just start getting taken away as an option as businesses struggle to keep up with the demand. And that's where these voice agents come into play. It's about managing that increased demand to benefit order modifications or order returns.
Okay, great. Before we actually jump into the demo, I just want to take up a couple of the questions so we don't leave them all just for the end, because there's one specific one, because they heard the demo, which is about, can the company choose the voice? If they already have a brand voice, can they use it? Or is there an option for voice design so each company can choose their own voice?
Yep, and the answer there is, to the most part, yes. So can you create your own voice? Maybe in the future, but right now we do offer close to 6,000 different voices you can pick from. We have different filters like which language the voice should be in, which accent it should be in. And when we dive into accent, it gets even more fun. Like with the Greek voices, for example, we can pick across different regions of Greece. There's some 8 different Greek accents we can pick from. And so if you have a certain voice in mind, you can work with our team to figure out which of our own offered voices among these close to 6,000 is the closest fit for you.
Thank you so much, Sunil. And sorry for the ad hoc question. I thought it's good to answer that before the next demo because I think it's in the same voice as the previous one. Okay. And while we're waiting, we had a question around the number of actually, we had a question about Spanish language specifically, but we have 60 languages and accents supported. And you even have like voice agents that can switch some languages mid-call. So definitely the options there are huge.
I saw you just filled in our form to know more about our custom travel packages, so I thought I'd give you a call directly. I'd like to start by first asking you 4 questions to understand better your expectations and plans. Is that okay?
Yep, that's great.
Nice to meet you, Grace. You already know we're doing custom group trips, but I need to know how many people are in your group. Can you share that with me?
Yep, we have 6 people in my group.
Understand. Now, how many days would you like to travel for?
1 week starting next week.
Thanks, Grace. Just to confirm, you mean the week starting on the 17th of November, right?
That one.
Great, Grace. Do you have any specific places on the itinerary that are must-sees, or any location you wouldn't want to miss?
Yes, I've heard Lagos is very beautiful this time of year.
Thanks for sharing that, Grace. Lego sounds like a fantastic spot. Now to the last question. What is your estimated budget for the trip?
Probably 3,000 euros.
Great, Grace. Now I have all the details that I need in order to prepare a custom offer for you. Would you still like to hear more information about our tours, or do you prefer to speak to a human about that?
Have a human follow up with me.
I'm sorry, Grace, but I'm unable to transfer you to a human directly. However, I will make sure our customer team reaches out to you with a tailored offer, and you'll be also able to ask them any questions you may have. Thanks for your interest, and have a great day.
So one of the cool things about voice agents is that you can personalize, as you've seen in previous webinars, what information goes on the input, what information goes on the output. And so with this one, I was triggering up with an API call. It was actually used with a previous customer whose name was Grace. Hence why I was insisting on calling me Grace. But you can really customize that to however it needs to be. So if they already have a predefined destination in mind, if they already have their name, you include all of that to keep the context more personalized.
Yeah, and one more thing, we actually build this just for Cloud Talk, so we turned Cloud Talk into a travel agency. So we built these like yesterday with Sunil and my colleague Anna. You can imagine how much more you can do if you actually put some time in and decide what happens. Okay, just to recap before Sunil goes through a couple of other examples. So pre-qualification is a really strong use case for our customers, and we see customers from all sorts of industries use this. So we use it as well for one particular cohort of our group of our customers where the voice agent calls them and asks them clarifying questions if they're not quite qualified. So in B2B and SaaS, that could be one use case. Then if you are in home services, for example, you can ask things like, what's your zip code? When should we call you for an appointment, and so on. Education training, we're going to have a separate webinar on this, but you can ask things like, what program are you interested in? Or are you interested in beginner or advanced levels of this particular course, and so on. Real estate, you can imagine you can talk about the same things that Sunil talked about, budget, or is there a specific area that they're interested in? Do they want a house, an apartment, or whatever it is? I tried to buy an apartment a couple of years ago, and the real estate agency took 2 weeks to call me back to tell me what are the available properties in that particular budget and place that I wanted. And as Sunil mentioned, a voice agent could just search for it immediately and give you the answer on the spot. And then, of course, staffing and recruiting, tourism, and all other industries. So we will cover 2 more industries with examples, starting with tourism and hospitality, the one you heard about. Sunil?
Oh, sorry, I was looking at some of the questions here. Absolutely. So with this, it's pretty clearly a mix of inbound and outbound use cases. So a lot of times customers will want to do something like have one of their own end customers fill out a form, and then they'll follow up with them, which in a sense is an mixed inbound outbound use case. So especially with those inbounds, it'd be silly if you had a customer fill out a form and then they just get the same generic call that everyone else could have otherwise gotten. So what's pretty cool here is that just like how the previous demo was calling me Grace, you can send it into the field with information from that form. So one way that's really common is maybe you want to segment your customers into 2 types. Customers who are very clearly a really good fit, we want to get a human agent on them right away. And customers who might be a fit, but there might be something lacking. Like maybe they have a really high budget, but really low amount of people. Is this a luxury trip we're planning, or did they just pick the wrong number of people or too high of a budget? So that's where this can come in as a pre-qualification use case. Conversely, something that's always important, especially in industries like these, is your CSAT, your customer satisfaction. So once the trip is done, it can be a really rote, kind of mind-numbing process. Call upon each customer, see how did your trip go? Do you like your itinerary? Did everything go right? What could have been done better? Instead, you can have the voice agent call those people up, either right after the trip is done or maybe a week from now, to get their thoughts organized into a nice survey type of feedback and pass it on to your partners or to your internal strategy team.
Okay, and we have a bunch of questions. I started reading them. So this is the last example that we're going to give you for anything with fitness, wellness, memberships, and so on. And we actually have a customer that has 4 different agents. They're a gym, and it's quite interesting. So Sunil, wanna walk us through it?
Yep. So with this one, this customer is all about managing gym memberships. They're working with tons of gyms across Portugal, and the idea is we want to really personalize this so that we have all these gyms, it'd be a ton of calls, even with their larger database, even with their larger sales team. And so with their case, they're using voice agents to manage the more simpler inquiries. So like you can see here, pre-qualification, a recurring trend. The idea here is we're following up. We're going to see if maybe we don't even need to have a human conversation with them in the first place. Maybe they already know which gym they're interested in. They know exactly how long they want to sign up for. So a voice agent can process that and kick that information back to the partner. Alternatively, it's sometimes a case where a customer, we try calling them in the first place, but they don't pick up. And so we leave a voicemail with our phone number in there. Now, we can't be expected to be working around the clock at, say, 2 in the morning when it might be more convenient for them. The good news is that voice agents don't sleep, and so we can have a return call agent which is ready to field their inquiry as they come back. And then beyond that, following similar trends, we all have the AI receptionist, so managing the initial call volume, maybe fielding frequently asked questions before pushing them onto a dedicated sales member, or again, another success agent, something to manage CSAT. So a customer doesn't show up to their trial, why not? Did they suddenly get a cold feed, or was it just a matter of they need to reschedule? Little touches like this really improve that customer satisfaction part of the whole marketing piece and lead to higher conversion rates, all in all.
Thank you so much, Sunil. So as you saw, we have a bunch of different examples, but even though we picked just 3 industries, really these can be used across different industries in the same way. So just to summarize things, basically what we tried to show you here is that every old fix in your playbook, whether it's hiring temporary workers or figuring out a complex IVR or just deflecting to chatbot or just outsourcing to a BPO, actually now has a very modern twist or like counterpart that can be found directly in the telephony solution that you use today. Instead of hiring the temporary workers, you can train a voice agent to do exactly what you want it to do consistently, repeatedly on every single season during every single season when you receive those peak calls. You can also switch your IVR to a voice agent because IVRs, sometimes if they get too long, they're a little bit confusing. I know when I'm calling my bank, and I'm always telling this example, I really have a love-hate relationship with my bank. I have to listen to 6 IVR options to decide where I want to go. And I sometimes don't even know who's the right person for my problem. So imagine having a voice agent there that would basically understand what the intent is and then send me to the right place. That would save me time, that would save the bank time, and that would save a person on like option 6 telling me, oh yes, but this was option 2. So I'll bring you back to the keypad and please press 2. So yeah, really everything that you can think of that you have sometimes automated with emails, chatbots, or something else can now be automated with a voice agent. That said, we have a couple of questions here about some specific use cases, including can they do outbound sales cold calling? Sunil, what would you answer to on this question? I know my answer, but I'm wondering what you are hearing on the field.
Yep, so that's actually a really common use case we get. So the answer is yes. Typically what we recommend is just like with a human agent, you might have a script that you want to train them on, have them follow the script. Here's the start, here's the middle, here's the end, here's the questions in between. So you can put that into your voice agent prompt and you can trigger these from the API. So if you want to set up a flow from your CRM, so every time a new lead comes in, that can trigger a call to that person with their unique information. So it's not just, hey, we saw you're interested. It's going to be, hi, Bill. We saw you were looking at our product demo yesterday. Do you have a minute to chat about it? So the answer there is yes.
Awesome. And I would add just one thing here. I think voice agents are great when you think about them from a follow-up perspective. So for hand raisers. So someone is interested in your business and the voice agent calls them so that they act at the moment of intent, because we all know that people are not there immediately and they're not there all the time. So no one can really call them the next minute. A voice agent can. However, if you're talking about actually buying lists of leads with phone numbers and then giving those to the voice agent to call them, I would thread carefully there. It would have to be a very well vetted list that people are interested in, because cold calling, like pure cold calling with people that have never heard about your business, is hard enough already. And you don't want to, of course, like blast 90,000 people just because the voice agent can and then trigger off spam. So basically, yes, you can do it. The question is how and which cohorts you should try with first. And that's what the team is here for, to help you figure out where you would test it first and what would make sense for your business. Okay, so another question. Sunil, I'll need you for this one. Can AI receptionists handle spam callers? So this is for inbound, or so basically block them so they don't get put through.
Yes, so really it's a kind of. So there's a few ways we can look at this. The first one is, are we maybe looking at telemarketers who are wasting our lines or blocking up our lines? So we could set up a tool call between the voice agent and your blacklisted Cloud Talk to block spam callers where we see when we see them coming in. So maybe the agent knows it's supposed to talk about one thing, but the person is calling in talking about marketing services. Nothing to do with our business. Not a single real customer would ever want to talk about marketing services for a logistics company. So that's one option. We can give that voice agent access to the blacklist, add people into there. Conversely, if it's a problem with repeat callers, so someone just keeps calling in like 30 times a day, you could set up condition splitting rules or call rules in your CloudTalk call flow designer so that when you see someone's called a bunch of times today, they're automatically added to the blacklist so we can't keep calling back in.
I need to stop muting myself because then I need some time to get unmuted. Okay, great. How does it prevent AI hallucinations in order not to increase costs per minute for toll-free or shared cost numbers?
Yep. So this one comes down to tightness of the prompt. So one big thing I always like to tell my customers is, especially with voice agents, it's not so much about what you're adding, it's about what you're taking away. So when you create these voice agents, you want to make them really purpose-built and have an idea in mind. What should the ideal conversation look like? Where is it okay for it to veer off, and where should not have its own autonomy to make decisions? So a really common case might be the greeting. If someone answers the phone in a really weird way, you don't want to just bounce off whatever they said and go on to its own talk track altogether. That could be something that you say exactly this opener and hard code in exactly what it should say. And we do support variable prompts, so it's not so you can have a reference to their name to make sure that's always somewhat flexible and yet stays on mission.
Yeah, and if there's one thing that I would like to add about the cost control is that you can actually tell the voice agent the maximum amount of minutes that it can speak. So that really gives you control over the cost. And what Sunil mentioned, we actually faced this for one of our webinar voice agents previously, where when it was answering in a different way than we thought it would jump around. So we just fixed the prompt, and then after that, it worked like a charm. So it's really a matter of testing and finding out exactly what goes in the prompt. What kind of knowledge base, and knowledge bases are really interesting. What kind of knowledge base does the AI agent support? Does it support making information requests to a Google Cloud environment?
Yep, so these are actually two different features in voice agents. So with the knowledge base, that will largely speaking be a file or multiple files you put into there. So these can be PDFs, these can be Word documents. So pretty much you can have things in there like frequently asked questions, maybe our billing terms, maybe even local regulations that should be aware of as it's doing these conversations. And then when you want to retrieve real-time data from somewhere like Google Cloud, that's where you can take advantage of the tool functionality in voice agents, where you can have it make API calls directly to other APIs. So we see a lot of success there, especially with customers who either give it a very strict interpretation of how it should receive the data or use a middleware tool like Zapier, N8N, or Make to interpret the data it's getting back first, make it easy for the voice agent to understand, and then action that into conversation.
Awesome. And by the way, I don't know what's your technicality level in terms of all of you that are here today. I'm not super technical. Don't be afraid of all the big words, just like the integrations and so on. We have the team here that's actually going to help you set it up. Sunil is part of that team, and we can help you dumb it down for you so that you can set it up, whether you have an IT team or you don't have one. So don't worry about that. Can the AI specialist use API to read and book meetings on a third-party software, Calendly, HubSpot, and so on?
Yep. Now, you did mention Calendly, so one thing to preface there is that this really comes down to the software's API that you're using. So Calendly has this one issue we've run into where you can't actually book meetings into Calendly via API, but a bunch of other calendar tools that we have successfully done this with, like Google Calendar and Cal.com, their APIs do support booking meetings directly through API, and we have seen that used with great success in a real environment.
Yeah, and I would suggest we demoed this live on the very first webinar last season. So I would suggest you just go to the labs page and check out the very first episode. We're showing live how the meeting shows up in the calendar. Okay. How's the data captured by the voice agent transmitted to the user?
My guy, John. Yeah, so pretty much, actually, I'll share my screen for this one, but pretty much when you're,
Let me just stop sharing here.
so you have the data capture output of the voice agent. So here's an example of that call that I just made. So we have the usual analytics like the call summary, the sentiment, all that. So down here we have the call analysis, the data capture. This information is what will get sent over to the agent. So when they're receiving a call on their Cloud Talk phone, just like with inbound calls or call transfers, you have some information that you can see, like what's the person's name, what was the previous call history. And so the most latest activity that will be there will be the data capture and output from the voice agent. So any information that you instructed to pull from the call, they'll be able to see that before you even accept the call.
I'm trying to find also if I have the presentation from last time, because we were sharing as well how it looks in, it was called the voice agent that answers. How it looks in our Zendesk account, because we have a voice agent that captures the information and then we store it in Zendesk. So I will just now find it and share just as another example. So let me share my screen again. So again, we covered this on the previous webinars. You have all the webinar recordings on that same page. But for example, this is how it looks in our Zendesk for the voice agent that captures, for example, people calling on our website and then creates a ticket for our team. And it just gives them like a summary of what it heard so that the team can then pick up. I'll stop sharing now. Okay, next question. How do we get help implementing campaigns?
Yep. So with this one, we do offer implementation options where if you're comfortable with signing up for I think a minimum of 3 months experiment with a voice agent. So the idea is month 1, we build it together. Months 2 and 3, you have it working live as we make tweaks. You will get access to our tech consulting team. And so they'll be working with you hand in hand to help set up voice agents, including if you want to set up a campaign-based voice agent.
Okay. Then we have, does CloudTalk have integration with HubSpot? Can CloudTalk generate outbound calls from HubSpot?
Yep, you would just be using the HubSpot workflows to make a call to CloudTalk's API to trigger these voice agent calls.
And actually, that's what we're using as well. We use HubSpot and we have the pre-qualification, we have the webinar reminder, the follow-up, and so on. And all of those are triggered through HubSpot. Let me see if there are any other questions. What's the difference between our voice agents and 11 Labs?
So it's funny you should ask because 11 Labs is one of the options we present for our voice agents. So largely speaking, you'll be working with 2 different types of AI models in these voice agents. One to handle the actual voice itself. So 11 Labs, one of the offerings we have there. The other one is DeepGram. And the other one is going to be the AI model that handles the actual brains of the conversation. So that would be your ChatGPT, your Google Gemini, your your Anthropic Claude, that type of thing.
Yeah, and then if I may add, when you're implementing a voice agent that's part of your telephony, basically where we're taking this is it works side by side with your human team. So you might have already seen, those of you that are using voice agents, voice agent calls now show up in conversation intelligence. They can also be shown in the call log. So in the monitor, you can see if the voice agent made a call, received a call, and so on. So you would actually be able to manage the entire, all of your agents, be it human or AI, from one place. And then, of course, you benefit from all the stuff that CloudTalk will offer you, which is the numbers, the coverage, the focus on the quality, and all of our focus on fixing all of those things for you. I would say it's very different if you work with different providers and then try to make them part of one system. That's why we think AI voice agent as part of CloudTalk is quite powerful. How many concurrent calls can it handle?
Yep, so this one, in a sense, we're still figuring out what this is going to look like, but from a technicality standpoint, we can support up to 10 concurrent calls at a time.
Great. Okay, and for those of you that have conversation intelligence, can they use the knowledge-based data from that?
I guess this is one tricky part about doing a Zoom panel, where this one I'd love to get more context on.
Yeah, we'll actually reach out to you, Pedro, for some feedback. Currently, as far as I know, it's not possible, but this would be great feedback for the team.
Yeah, largely speaking, the voice agent calls will get run through a conversational intelligence add-on. I'm just curious your questions about working reverse. Can it use the insights from conversational intelligence to power the voice agent?
Yeah, maybe Pedro, if you're still here, if you can clarify what you meant, because as of lately, you can see the calls in the CI, if that was a question. And otherwise, we will reach out to you for additional information. Okay, so there's one more question, and then we're done because I'm aware we're at time. So there's a customer that's interested in this. What is the model in this AI? Can it transfer the call to the real agent in some cases, which is yes. Can we connect API calls, and where can we track analytics? Can it save some data in contacts and push it to HubSpot? And how does it work with voicemails? So a very loaded question, but let's take it one at a time.
Yep. So for all these yes or no's, it'll be a yes for all of these. Let's go through these one by one. The model in this AI. So you have the voice part, the 11 Labs DeepGram. Then you have the LLM part, the large language model. That'll be your choice between ChatGPT, OpenAI's ChatGPT, Google's offerings, and Anthropic's offerings. So you have a lot of flexibility on that part. You absolutely can do call transfers to real agents. There's a feature inside of voice agents that lets you define when when and how a call should be transferred. So should it go to a specific agent or should it go to a group? And maybe you want it to have multiple different transfer destinations, in which case you can bake that into your call flow designer. So if it detects something in the conversation that warrants it going to a different user or to a specific team, you can advise the voice agent to let the person know, stay on the line, I'm going to end it here. It's going to transfer you to the billing department. It'll go there accordingly. As far as connecting API calls, yep, we support posts, gets, deletes, and puts. So you should be able to connect this to the system you're thinking about, the other software. There'll be two places for tracking analytics for voice agents. One will be the Cloud Talk dashboard, and the other one will be inside the Cloud Talk analytics page. So in your analytics, you'll have two views when it comes to voice agents. One will be the voice agent tab, so you can see this on a macro basis. How many calls do all your voice agents make? How many calls do some voice agents make? How long were these calls? How many of them were picked up versus not picked up? And then when we dive into the specific calls, that's where you can get more information about that call. So what was the transcript of the conversation? What were some topics that were discussed? If you want to apply a call score rubric to your voice agent, you can also do that. So is your voice agent performing at the same level as your human agents when it comes to fielding these calls as far as the opener goes or the discovery questions go? HubSpot is one of our native integrations, so all call data will get pushed from these voice agent calls into HubSpot, and part of that data capture and output, where you can define what information you should look for. That also gets sent in there as part of that call task. And finally, when it comes to voicemails, that's part of the voice agent prompt. So these are clever enough to detect when a voicemail happens. It's on you from there to define what it should say when it detects a voicemail. So if you wanted to say, hey, this is me calling from my company, give me a call back when you can at this number, you can program that into there.
Thank you so much, Sunil. That was a big question. And actually, all of you gave me some great ideas about the next sessions. It seems that it would be helpful to figure out, to see how they get triggered, how they get analyzed. And so also we'll make sure to get that in some of the next seasons. Thank you so much and have a lovely day.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.